All right, welcome everybody. And we are going to be doing our workshop on stopping headaches forever. So if you are here with us tonight, it's because you or someone you know is struggling with headaches, and or maybe you yourself want to just learn how to prevent headaches, because we're going to cover that as well. And I want to acknowledge you for being here on this webinar, because it tells me that you are an action taker, and action takers are the ones that get the results. So it means you want to learn and you want to do what you can do to help yourself and your family. So before we go into this topic, I want to do a little housekeeping and just let you know that this is a series of monthly topics. And next month, we're going to tackle sleep is our next one. So if you know anybody that's struggling with sleep these days, then again, that is going to be something that is going to be crucial for you to, for yourself or anybody you know to attend, because we're going to unpack all the best practices for sleep. And so again, just make sure you get signed up for that, because it is a very popular workshop, and it's going to be on Wednesday, October 7th. So that is coming up shortly. And so please go to our website and you can get scheduled, you can get signed up there. Or you can always just send us a text that you're interested, and then you would just send it to 802-985-9850 and just put in the word sleep, and then we'll know that you are interested in that workshop. All right, so here we go. Let's dive into our topic of tonight, which is stopping headaches forever. Now, first let me ask you, how many of you have been to a workshop before and you've learned some amazing information, and for some reason you got distracted, but you didn't really follow up on it, right? Me too, I've done that too. So today, I hope it'll be different for you. And today I want to say that if this information moves you, if you get some value from it, if it resonates with you, that at the end, I'm going to give you an opportunity for you to implement these ideas for you and your family so everybody can get healthier. If that sounds good to you, then you can give me a little thumbs up sign there. All right, so let's get right into tonight's topic, headaches. So first of all, did you know that there's been a surge in folks that are struggling with headaches ever since mask mandates went into place? So we have a new stress to our systems. And even before masks were added as an additional stress, lots of folks already struggled with headaches. But I thought it was interesting. There was a study done in 2020, which is this year, and that was by Anj JJY et al. And what they found is they did a cross-sectional study with frontline healthcare workers during COVID-19, and they found that 85% of them had an increase in headaches. Isn't that amazing? 85%. I'm just looking at the details here on this one. Yeah, the ages were between 21 and 35 years of age. They looked at 159 healthcare workers. Oh, it's 81% developed headaches from wearing a face mask. Some had pre-existing headaches that were precipitated by the mask, but all felt like the headaches affected their work performance. So I bring that up because when we uncover what are the things that cause headaches, sometimes people say, well, my headache gets triggered by this or it gets triggered by that. And certainly mask use might be one of the things that triggers it. But for many people, as it said in this study, there was an underlying experience of they already had headaches. The mask just made it worse. And so what we want to do is we want to go all the way upstream and really look at what is the ultimate cause of headaches. And I think you're going to find this information very valuable, because if we can find what the cause is, that's when we can really correct it. So in my practice, how do I see these people coming into my practice? Some examples would be, there's a couple of teenagers that have been in the practice who had concussions. And one girl, she could not even go to school. Her concussion was so bad and the headaches were unbearable. And so we took care of her and she got really good results quickly, which was fantastic. Another young woman, she's in her 20s, she was a landscaper, and she had been a cheerleader and had 4 concussions from that. She also had the HPV vaccine, and that seemed to trigger an increase in the headaches. But when she got a headache, I mean, she was a real go-getter, a really very exuberant kind of person until she had a headache, and then it just floored her. And so she, under care, again, got fantastic results. Another fellow, he was a carpenter, and he had migraines, and they started after a car accident. And for him, he also started to get a runny nose constantly after that car accident, along with the headaches. So you'll see where the link is there as we uncover what the ultimate causes of these things are. Another woman, she had 3 car accidents in a row, all in 1 year. Holy cow, the amount of jarring to her spine and her head. And so we were able to help her move through that. Another woman had had 20 years of migraines. It was exhausting for her, exhausting, affecting every part of her life. And again, so relieved that she was able to really get through that and get resolution of that. And then another young mother, again, a mother of 3. Imagine being a mother of 3 and then also having a history of concussions and having terrible headaches. So we helped her as well. And then another woman who had fibromyalgia and headaches and digestive concerns. And we were able to help her with those things. So it's very widespread how these show up in my office. And it's nearly every age, nearly every lifestyle, both males and females, all different occupations, students, manual work, people work at desks. And the most important thing though is it derails life. It derails life. It derails fun, fitness, productivity, sleep, energy, life. And it's almost totally preventable. In fact, it's also absolutely correctable. But to correct the problem, you have to understand the cause. So let's take a closer look at the 3 common types of headaches, all the different types: stress headaches, sinus headaches, and migraine headaches. And what you're going to find is they actually have something all in common. So first things first, though, when patients view headaches, their views are very different. When people come to me complaining of headaches, and I ask them about them, some people will actually call their headaches, normal headaches. Okay, this is somebody that's just been living with headaches their whole life. Okay, so what is normal? Normal is no headache. Okay, can we all agree on that? That healthy normal is no headache. And yet some people have headaches as their norm, meaning they're so common that they happen all the time. So when I ask these folks, well, what is it that you do when you have a headache? The most common response is, I take medication, either prescription or over the counter. And so when I ask them, do you think that you have headaches because of an aspirin deficiency in your body? You think that's what's going on? And of course, they laugh and they say, yeah, I guess not, right? And so what really needs to happen for these people to have long-term results is to truly uncover and correct the cause and not just mask the symptoms. It's amazing to me how some folks have just set their expectations for their health and how they feel so low. So we need to fix that. And so again, we need to get to the cause. Like this: the pain starts in my husband's lower back, then it travels up his spine to his neck, then it comes out his mouth and into my ears, and that's why I get these headaches, right? What's the cause of her headaches, right? She needs to fix her husband. That's the cause of her headaches. That's the cause of the problem. So that's where we want to go tonight, is what actually is the cause of the problem. Now, what people expect is often determined by what they believe. So we're going to look at beliefs, dangerous beliefs around headaches. And here's the first one. Let's break it down. Let's check our perspective on this, okay? Headaches are the problem. Headaches are the problem. Guess what? Headaches are not the problem. They are the effect of the problem. So we need to find the cause in order to really correct it. So headaches are a symptom, which really means it's just the tip of the iceberg. So anytime you have a symptom, whether it's a stress headache or a sinus headache or a cluster headache or a migraine headache, they're all symptoms and they're all just the tip of the iceberg. And of course, if they're the tip of the iceberg, the cause of that symptom, the cause of the effect, is much bigger, hidden below the water, and that's what needs to be investigated in order to really address this. And so what are symptoms? They are communications from our body. It's our body trying to tell us something's wrong, that there's a problem, that there's a breakdown, that there's a stress that the body cannot adapt to, that tissue is breaking down, that you're moving away from health, that you're in trouble, and you need to address it. You need to make a change. So let me ask you, is that a smart warning system or what, right? Is your body smart or stupid? Smart, exactly. And we know that your body is smart and it's trying to tell you something. So we refer to symptoms as body signals. And here's the key. How you interpret and respond to your body signals is what makes all the difference. Do you listen to them? Do you respond and make changes? Do you stop damaging your body and start healing your body? Or do you try to ignore them and press on? Oh, maybe it'll go away, or oh, it's just part of aging, or even, oh, these are just normal headaches, normal aches and pains, or any of the other stories that we tell ourselves. Or worse, do you try to stifle these warning signs, stifle them with drugs? Is that what you do? Dangerous chemicals that only suppress your body's communications so that you feel better temporarily while your problem gets worse. Is that smart or stupid? Who's ready to learn a better way here? Symptoms or body signals are only the tip of the iceberg. And the way that you think about the symptoms is what drives your choices. And the choices are what drive your outcomes. And so this is critical, because if you only worry about treating the tip of the iceberg, you're ignoring the underlying cause and you're allowing it to become a bigger issue. So let's talk about the symptoms. So I want you to check out this continuum here. And you may have seen this before, but it's worth reviewing because it really is so important. And in fact, this was a study in and of itself. It was repeated in the 70s, 80s, and again in the 2000s because it provided such great information. So what they did is they did a survey of a large population of people, and they found out that everyone fell somewhere on this health continuum. So right now, everybody watching this webinar, you fall somewhere on this health continuum. And so you can see on the right-hand side is the high level of health. And then the other end on the left-hand side is where the body is no longer able to adapt to even the most basic of life's stressors, and they're heading towards premature death. Now, the first step in moving from neutral, you see the neutral point in the middle where you don't necessarily have symptoms, right? The neutral point, it's not high-level wellness, but it's not necessarily, early death, right? The first step in moving from neutral toward premature death is a sign and then a symptom. Now, a sign is something that's measurable, but you can't necessarily feel it. And then a symptom is when you start to feel it. And so after enough under-addressed symptoms, you head toward disability. And that's where the symptom is no longer correctable. And when there are enough disabilities, you expire early. So if you're experiencing headaches, where do you fall on this continuum? Do you see? You're already 2 steps toward disability. Everyone is also moving in a direction, so nobody's standing still. So where we want to be is over to the right. And the vast majority of folks in my practice, probably 70%, are living at that end and on the right-hand side because they have awareness of health concepts. And they're educating themselves about attending workshops that we offer and following our recommendations on resources we give them and being fully engaged in the process. And they're taking the growth steps to change behaviors around how they eat, how they move, how they think, how they sleep, and how they replenish themselves. And of course, they get adjusted regularly. And so it is this that leads to high-level wellness every single time, from newborns to folks in their 80s and 90s plus. So I encourage everyone to have this as their goal. But right now, you might be experiencing symptoms, so you're way over to the left. And so if you already have the symptoms, it means you're already moving towards the red zone. So ask yourself, what direction are you headed in? Are you headed towards health or away from it? And remember that we're all moving at different speeds. So at what velocity towards health or away from it are you traveling? And what kind of momentum is there? Momentum is mass times velocity. So the more unhealthy lifestyle choices you're making, the more mass there is of moving you faster in the wrong direction. Sometimes my first job is to just stop the negative momentum and get patients moving in the right direction. Just slow them down moving in the wrong direction and then turn the corner and start them moving in the right direction. And it all comes down to understanding symptoms and understanding them as body signals, as alarms. So we really want people to learn how to speak body, speak the language of the body, and understand there's an innate intelligence in the body that is always trying to communicate with you. And if we can simply learn how to interpret the body signals, it means we're going to make better decisions, which is going to lead to better choices and better behaviors. And so you need to start asking yourself, what is your objective with the healthcare protocols that you're using? What is your objective? Is it temporary symptom relief, or is it regaining health and function? And the way you think or believe about these things, whatever your belief system is, that is going to organize your behaviors, which is going to then affect your choices. And that's going to lead to your outcomes, which are your results. And it's amazing that in our culture, people are taught that symptoms are the best indicator of health, right? Really? You think symptoms are the best indicator of how healthy you are? Check this out. Feeling versus function. This is what science tells us about symptoms and why it's dangerous to use symptoms to determine how healthy you are. So there are three parts to the nervous system here. We can see that there's the motor nerves, the autonomic nerves, and the sensory nerves. And so 40% of the nervous system is used for motor nerves, which is for voluntary control of our body, moving the muscles around. 40% is for autonomic control, which is the automatic functions in our body that are not consciously controlled, like breathing and heart rate, digestion, that kind of thing. There's another 10 to 20% for controlling things like what we feel and what our posture is like, and hot and cold temperatures. And so within that realm, only 10% is to feel pain. So only 10% of our nervous system's job is actually feeling pain. If we start to have problems in the motor system, we might feel weakness or spasm or fatigue or tightness. In the autonomic system, we might feel breathing problems, digestive problems, low energy, but less than 10% of the nerves actually feel pain. It's actually much less than 10%, which means that problems affecting function are most commonly happening without pain or other obvious symptoms. And this is true for the most common health issues, by the way. So for example, what are the symptoms of heart disease? What are they? Especially the early signs of heart disease. What are the early signs of diabetes? How about cancer? How about even the most ubiquitous health problems like tooth decay? By the time you have symptoms with any of these, including dental issues, it's a sign that you already have a problem, right? So the pain, is that an early sign or a late sign that you have a problem? It's a late sign. It means that the problem is already there. So why are we taught to judge our health and manage our health by symptoms? This is not a useful premise. So we need a better way to think about this. We need to review our premises. And then of course, that's going to affect our beliefs, and that'll affect our choices, and that'll affect our outcomes. So I want to share with you my premises here. We need a better definition of health. And so a better approach to managing our health, a better lens through which to view our health. We need to ask better questions and have a better set of ground rules. We need a better premise. So here's mine. Healthy is normal. That's the first one. Healthy is normal. We're designed to not have headaches. Headaches are not normal. Healthy is normal. Our body is smart, right? Our bodies were formed from two tiny little cells you can't even see that join together, and then 9 months later, you have an entire human being. And the very first system to develop in the embryo is the nervous system. So the nervous system is the master system. It controls every single function in your body. Your skull is what's protecting your brain, and your spine is the suit of armor that protects your spinal cord. Your spine is designed to last a lifetime. We don't get spinal transplants, right? Our spines were designed to last a lifetime, and they're designed to withstand the stresses of life, except that modern life is more and more stressful. And would you agree with me that it is 10x all the old stresses right now, right? It is unnaturally stressful. So what's the answer? What is the answer? Is it to take drugs? Is it just to try and ignore the headaches? Or is there a better way? Well, another dangerous belief, I think, is that drugs work. Like, do drugs work? Well, that depends. What is your objective? First off, let's ask this question. When you take a drug, is it targeting just the head? If you take a drug for a headache, is it targeting just the head? No. When you take a pill, it goes through the stomach, and the digestive system, and then it goes through the entire blood supply everywhere, not just to the headaches. And believe me, no one has ever gotten more healthy by just taking more and more drugs, right? Think about it. If you went into somebody's house and you went into their bathroom and there's that mirrored cabinet on the wall that opens up, what do we call that? The medicine cabinet, right? All right, if you went into someone's house and you opened it up and it was filled with medications, and then you went into somebody else's house and you opened up their medicine cabinet and it was empty, which family do you think is the healthier family, right? The empty one, right? Exactly. So taking more and more drugs is not going to get you healthier because they only address the effect, not the cause. And boy, I'll tell you what, drugs, they are definitely the most common approach that people use for headaches. So let's unpack this a little bit, right? If we look at NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, that's things like Advil, Aleve, Motrin, aspirin, and there's other kinds of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. There's prescription ones, and there's also over-the-counter versions, but they tend to be the go-to drugs for headaches. Doctors, why they recommend them? They've been on the market for years, and the average consumer actually believes that they're safe. But in truth, NSAIDs, although they may offer short-term relief at best, they actually contribute to a long list of adverse side effects and worse. So while just about everyone swallows these pills on occasion, 60 million people take them regularly. And the cost per year in the US comes to $5 billion for prescription NSAIDs and another $2 billion for over-the-counter NSAIDs. That's billion with a B. So I want to just share with you some good reasons to reconsider regular NSAID use. The first is gastrointestinal disturbances, irritation. So NSAIDs actually, like ibuprofen, for example, they cause ulcers, bleeding, and holes in the stomach or in the intestine. And what is it that causes the problem? Well, NSAIDs, the way they work is they reduce inflammation by suppressing something called the COX-2 enzyme. But at the same time that they're blocking the COX-2 enzyme, which is an inflammatory enzyme, it also blocks the COX-1 enzyme, which is what we need in order to create a healthy stomach lining. So in plain English, NSAIDs interfere with the mucus that Mother Nature designed to protectively coat our stomachs. Another thing that happens with taking NSAIDs, last year, maybe it was a couple years ago now, the FDA announced that regular NSAID use can increase the risk of stroke and heart conditions. And the most common symptom being atrial fibrillation, AFib. So there's an awful lot of people that actually take a baby aspirin if they have a concern about heart disease, and yet we find that taking NSAIDs actually increases the risk for stroke and heart conditions. Another thing that happens is infertility. 1 out of 4 couples today actually has difficulty getting pregnant. 1 out of 4, it's actually about 28%. And very few people know that NSAID drugs may actually be contributing to the problem. Even a short-term use of NSAIDs could adversely affect a woman's fertility. One study showed that 75 to 94% of women taking NSAIDs did not ovulate. And worse, some of them actually even develop cysts. So what happens is the NSAIDs actually prevent the ovarian follicle from rupturing, which is what then produces the egg that travels through the reproductive system so it can be fertilized. So women who are taking NSAIDs cannot release an ovum in order to be fertilized. So that's how it interferes with fertility. So, this is trouble. And if this is the only solution that you've been using and you want to know if there's a better way, feel free to just send us a text. Again, that number is 802-985-9850. And we can sit down and just schedule a get acquainted call. And that way I can understand more about what's happening with you and see whether or not we can help. Now, some other things that NSAIDs are responsible for is hearing loss and other things like allergic reactions and even liver trouble. The liver is stressed quite a bit from the use of NSAIDs. I'm really concerned about the kidney failure that happens with the use of NSAIDs. In fact, the New England Journal of Medicine tells us that there's actually a lifetime limit to how many NSAIDs anybody can take. And if you take 1,000 to up to 15,000, 1,000 to 1,500 in a lifetime, your risk of kidney failure is multiplied 4 times. And if you happen to have taken 5,000 in a lifetime, it actually goes up 800% of kidney failure. And then other studies actually show an increase in certain types of breast cancer with if you're taking too many NSAIDs. So these are some of the side effects that can happen if this is the solution that you're trying to use to treat your headaches. So if you have been using drugs to manage this, remember, headaches are not the problem. They are the symptom of the problem. So this is the big idea that I want you to take away from tonight, is that drugs do not correct the problem. They mask the symptoms of the problem. You still have the problem. And in fact, the problem oftentimes gets worse over time until the drugs actually don't even work anymore. And then you're on to stronger, more dangerous drugs, and then the side effects from those. And now you have new problems like the ones that we just listed. So of course you might find yourself thinking, oh, well, how about if I just don't take drugs at all? You know, maybe it'll just go away. Maybe I can just try ignoring it. Maybe I can just try living around it. And I've seen this. I've seen how people, they change their entire life just to live around these headaches. Like some days are spent just closed up in a dark room with like no stimulus at all. That's the only way to manage it. But what typically happens when you try to ignore things, right? They just get more complex, harder to fix, more expensive, and you just tend to have a downward spiral. So I want you to know that really you have to face this. You have to take action if you want to get better results. And I don't mean just finding new ways to live around it either. I mean, you have to take action, and that means trying to solve the problem. But in order to take action, you have to understand what the problem is. So let's take a hard look at the cause of headaches. Stress. Who here agrees that modern life is unnaturally stressful, right? And it comes at us in all directions. It comes at us from our thoughts, right? The stresses from stressful thoughts like mental, emotional stress, right? But also there's toxins that are stressful, chemical stresses. And there's the traumas, there's physical stresses that we may be exposed to. So we call these the 3 T's, thoughts, toxins, and traumas. You know, so who here has had a stressful day, you get home and you've got a headache, right? Maybe there was no trauma. Maybe there was no toxin, or maybe there was, maybe you're not sure, but there were definitely stressful thoughts happening. And in most cases, that's one of the number one pieces. But again, there may be these other factors, you know, maybe you have to wear a mask now, and that could be upsetting your oxygen carbon dioxide balance. So that could be another trigger for you, and an additional stress. So that would be a chemical stress. That would be in the category of a chemical stress. So these stresses cause a condition, all of these stresses cause a condition called subluxation, all right? Subluxation, if you've never heard that word before, I want you to practice saying that with me, subluxation. And subluxations are caused by jarring of the spine that may come from a macro trauma, like a car accident, a sports injury, work accidents, slips and falls. Remember I talked about the folks in the practice that had had concussions or that had had car accidents, right? That jarring that happens. And so it's obvious that these are stresses that can damage the body. And most people are looking for what were the big traumas that I had that could cause a headache? And not everybody has a big trauma that they can think of that caused the headache. So we need to zoom in on even a bigger risk factor in modern life, much bigger risk factor than these macro traumas. The real culprit behind so much of the headaches that we see every day is micro traumas. Micro traumas, the small stuff. I know you've heard the expression, don't sweat the small stuff, you know, like COVID viruses or bullets or, you know, like jellyfish. All these are tiny little things. Don't sweat the small stuff, but they have a big impact, right? So that expression does not apply here to headaches either, and it doesn't apply to these micro traumas. The postural stress associated with sitting in front of a computer monitor, a laptop, a tablet, or a mobile phone, it's a phenomenon that we collectively call tech stress. And it is arguably one of the most serious health threats of the modern world. They don't cause a problem it's not from one moment of having your head over a device or in front of a screen, but it's over time, it accumulates and it results in subluxation. So subluxations come from both the jarring of the system, the traumas, as well as the bad habits and the poor posture. And so what happens is you get a misalignment of the joints in the spine. This is what a subluxation is. And these stresses, the physical, chemical, emotional stresses, whether they're the macro or the micro or a combination of them, they create the subluxations. And that joint misalignment actually causes soft tissue damage. So it damages the disc, it damages the muscles and the ligaments and the tendons, and it creates inflammation, which then starts to affect the nerves. So you can see the yellow nerve there. You can see the inflamed disc putting pressure on the nerve. When the bones misalign, that can also cause irritation to the nerve. And so if you keep moving that joint around, you irritate that nerve more and more. And so your smart body is going to go into a muscle spasm to strap that joint down to stop that movement. When that happens, the disc gets immobilized and fixated, and discs usually need to have a pumping action, just like squeezing a sponge, to get toxins out of them and to suck nutrients in. They do not have a good blood supply to carry nutrients and toxins in and out. And so imbibition is this function of squeezing and unsqueezing the disc to keep it healthy. But when you strap down that joint and you stop the movement, then over time that disc gets unhealthy. It starts to break down. Now, when you also have this joint fixation, this loss of motion in the joint, that sends signaling up to the brain, where the brain now gets in distress mode, because the brain is used to getting signals saying everything's moving, everything's okay, everything's moving, everything's okay. And the brain gets that signal and says, okay, everything's good, we're good. But when you strap down that joint and the brain stops getting the messages that there's healthy movement, the brain actually will go into a stress response, and it will actually have your body secrete stress hormones that will flood the system. So subluxations will actually cause elevated stress hormones. Now remember, the causes of subluxations are the bad habits that add together. So it's the traumas, but it's also the micro traumas, and it's the accumulation of these things that over time start to lead to problems. And tech neck is one of the biggest culprits. I mean, really think about it. How many people here really, have a cell phone, and everybody in the family has one, and you all spend way too much time staring at it. And now you take away every other activity that you could possibly do. So you're stuck at home looking at monitors, big and small, smartphones, screens, laptops, and we're just using them more and more. I mean, all the kids that are stuck going to school looking at monitors. So we all know that we're using screens too much. And you probably have this sense that it's really not a natural thing, right? That maybe it's not even good for us for many reasons, right? But after tonight, I really want you to understand why and how bad it is. I mean, back in the day when we were all traveling on airplanes, notice like when the airplane lands, everyone on the plane goes right into this tech neck posture. Like the phones come back on again, right? We are just in this culture where if we are removed from access, the moment we get access again, we are on it again. So that is how addicted we are to our devices. And that's why tech neck is such a big problem. Let me show you why. So you can see the bones in the spine here. It's gotten so bad that this addiction of tech, it actually has become a pandemic, right? This is a pandemic, and truly it is widespread, and it is actually much more far-reaching, and I believe has much more serious consequences because it's affecting so many more people than our current pandemic. So the health experts actually have a name for it, which is tech neck, and it really is the name we give it. We talk about, before tech neck came into play, I used to say sitting is the new smoking, but now when we think of screen time, that's like the new crack cocaine. It's just way too much, and the consequences are real, right? So here's the brain, you can see, and if there's a good curve in the spine, it sends messages down the spinal cord with ease, but the vertebrae in the neck are small, and they're different from the lumbar vertebrae down the low back that are designed for weight bearing, that are much bigger. And so these vertebrae in the neck are tiny, And if you can see my pointer here, so here are all the solid blocks of bone here. And then this is a canal. So these are arches of bone right here behind it to the right. Those are the arches. And these are the bumps that you can feel in the back of your neck sticking out if you touch the back of your neck. So this is an arch right here. And we have a big hole in the bottom of our head. And that is where the brain stem comes down. And the brain stem then turns into the spinal cord, and it runs right down through this canal. And so that's how the spinal column is protecting the central nervous system, protecting the spinal cord, is it surrounds and protects it. But if we misalign the vertebrae and start to put pressure, it can put pressure on the nervous system. So check this out. This is what the science of biophysics is telling us about how our posture can affect our nervous system and affect our health. So if you see here on the left, you can see the center of the head is right over the center of the shoulder, and then that goes right over the center of the waist and the hip and so on. And so this is where there's good posture, and the neck has actually a nice little forward curve in it. And so this is a healthy normal. But if you take this head that's almost, you know, if it's kind of like the size of a bowling ball, if you were to hold a bowling ball out in front of you, you have to work harder. So for every inch that our head goes forward of our shoulder, the center of our head is forward of the shoulder, it doubles the pressure on the neck. And so because the cervical vertebrae are so small, and the size of the cervical vertebrae are tiny, but this is the biggest part of the spinal cord that comes through here. If the neck goes forward, it puts more load on the neck, which was not designed to have that much load. And over time, it builds stress and pressure on the nerves. And look at this last guy here, right? Oh my gosh. I mean, all you have to do is put a cell phone in front of him, and that's a classic posture these days, right? Is having this forward head carriage. So for every inch forward, it doubles the pressure on the neck. So now you put it another inch forward, and now we've got even more pressure on the neck. This is a big problem because, again, these subluxations, these joint misalignments, the soft tissue damage, the inflammation, the nerve irritation that happens, the muscle spasming, the lost inhibition that affects the disc, the joint fixation, the degeneration that happens, and the pain and the headaches that happen from this. So this is what happens, and often the cause of many of the symptoms or body signals that we have, like headaches, whether they're stress headaches, sinus headaches, or migraine headaches, it's coming from subluxations, right? Can you see that? All right, and so if we look again at this idea about the nervous system, remember, less than 10% of the nerves actually feel pain, actually much less, which means that this is the most commonly happening without pain or other obvious symptoms. See, subluxations are kind of like cavities. They can happen with no symptoms, and then they can develop into conditions and dysfunction that can lead to symptoms. But the most common symptom of a subluxation is no symptom at all. And so poor posture affects everything. And it may start to affect our autonomic nervous system or our motor nervous system. Like, just do me a favor here, everybody. Sit in your most slumped posture with your head forward, like we were seeing in those pictures. And now just try taking a deep breath, right? Just try it out. It's much harder to even breathe with this kind of posture. Right now, bring your head back up over the center of your shoulder. Even if it's not normal for you to do that, just bring it up. And now try taking a breath. See how much easier it is too, right? So the stress on the nervous system affects all of our functions. And so this is the way that the nerves come through the spine. They come down from the brain, down the spinal cord, and then they come out through the holes in between the vertebrae, and they carry the messages to all the different organs. So we have the central nervous system, the spinal cord, sending the messages out from between the vertebrae through the peripheral nervous system, and that peripheral nervous system leads to the organ systems. And it's kind of like a fuse box, right? So in your cellar where you have your fuse box panel, you know that each of these switches is monitoring the wire that goes to a certain room in the house. And we know if that switch gets tripped, that room is not going to get the proper function that it should be getting because it's not getting the electricity. The circuit has blown. Subluxations are like blown circuits, and we know what the map of the nervous system is. We know where these nerves go. And so when there's a subluxation, we know what part of the body may be being affected. So the spinal nerves affect the function in the body. And so I want to now show you, if you have subluxations, for example, up in the neck area, up just underneath the head, base of the head, and right through the neck, these nerves go out to the upper extremity. So if there's a neck subluxation, it's not uncommon for people to have shoulder, arm, and elbow problems, wrist and carpal tunnel problems, hand problems, but these nerves also go up into the head. And so we oftentimes will have headaches associated with cervical subluxations. So I want to show you each of these individual, again, the subluxation, the concept here is that when we have, this is like taking a slice, right? Here's the x-ray that shows a loss of the curve here. So we should have a beautiful forward curve in the neck. Here's the jaw, here's the back of the head. So the jaw on the right, back of the head on the left. We should have a forward curve here, but when we lose that curve and it straightens out, instead of having give in the spine where there's some spring to it because of the curve, we're going to get jamming. And that jamming can actually lead to degenerative change in the spine. So you see how this disc right here is a fairly good size. This disc also a fairly good size. This disc is a little hard to see because the yellow's around it, but right here, where is the disc? And you can see there's some bone spurs that are building here. And these bone spurs, this is right where the nerves come out. And so that can start to affect function. So the nerve irritation and the interference in your body's inability to heal and remain healthy is what can be causing headaches. The nerves that come out of this area of the spine here at the top go up into the head. And then the nerves that come through here also affect other parts of the body and also affect the muscles and muscle tension in this area of the body as well. So stress headaches, I want you to see what parts of the body where the subluxations tend to be for these different types of headaches. Stress headaches, we call them cervicogenic headaches because cervicogenic is a word that means, in the Latin, it means, neck born from. So giving birth from the neck, right? The headaches that emerge from the neck. And the stress headaches, when we feel like stress is the thing that is triggering the headaches, it's because we have tension in the muscles in the neck, which then misaligns the vertebrae, and it affects there's a tug that happens on the head, and it also affects the nerves going up there. So C1 to C7, that's all of the cervical vertebrae. But also we now find that the upper thoracic vertebrae are also culprits with stress headaches. And I think part of that is that we get into a slouched posture when we're stressed, and that upper back then takes the brunt of it. So when we start to get subluxations in the upper back, that also affects a tug on the back of the neck and the muscles that are going right up into the head, up to attach to the skull. So the stress or cervicogenic headaches are coming from C1 to C7, T1 to T5. These tend to be physically based on the posture. So the posture that of stress posturing is what is driving these headaches, right? Just like the bowling ball head going forward over these areas, right? All right, now when we look at sinus headaches, this is another problem that many people have, sinus headaches. This often comes from C2, the second cervical vertebrae, right at the top of the neck, but also C6 and C7 are the common culprits I'll find for sinus headaches. And we think of this as a chemical stress, more of a chemical stress, because you're oftentimes exposed to allergens, that sort of thing. Or you'll have infections, which again, we could think of as a chemical thing, sinus infections. So again, the sinus headaches, most often the correction is going to come from correcting the subluxations at C2, C6, and C7. All right, now what about migraine headaches? Oh my goodness, migraines. If you've never had one, they are 10x a regular headache with added light sensitivity is a common feature as well. And basically when a migraine is happening, you just cannot function through it. You just need a dark room. You just need to hide away. So migraine headaches, what do I find is the culprit here? Yes, it is going to be the cervical spine very frequently and the upper back, but also I may find the lumbar spine, L1 and L2. And that's because this area of the lumbars affects a lot of our hormones. And so oftentimes migraine headaches do have a hormonal factor to them. And so if we can actually improve and correct the nerve supply that is disturbed, that's affecting hormone function, this is where we oftentimes will see a beautiful resolution with folks that struggle with migraines. So again, just many times people are just told so often that there's nothing that can be done for them. Nothing could be further from the truth. What do we have to help folks that have headaches? I want to show you. It's a three-legged stool of correction in order to correct the cause here. And so we are going to get our best results when we work with folks that struggle with headaches, as well as neck pain and low back pain, all of those kinds of problems, because they're lifestyle problems. So the first thing we have to do is break the bad habits. And the bad habits are going to be how you eat, how you move, and how you think. And we want to be thinking about the micro traumas that happen in each of these categories. So many times people think, oh, it's just a big trauma, but actually it tends to be the micro traumas in these categories. So for example, when it comes to how you eat, many times people actually are aware of there's certain foods that trigger their headaches. And sometimes if you're not sure, you want to just start a journal, a diary, a headache diary, where you're noting what did you eat that day or the day before that may have triggered the headache. So the best remedy for that is just to start to work with an anti-inflammatory diet, and then to slowly introduce other foods. So if you can identify which may be triggering a headache. I also like to test people for tissue-specific nutrients. And I also find that sometimes blood sugar can be a factor with triggering headaches. And so helping people shift from carb burning to fat burning definitely helps to stabilize the low blood sugar ups and downs. And that can actually help headaches quite a bit as well. Also, just looking at the immune system, how to support the immune system in case sinus infections are part of the problem. And hydration is a really important factor when it comes to sinus headaches. And the reason is because water is so important for our body to do every single reaction. But if we don't have enough water and we're dehydrated, the body will have to create some sort of fluid to make up for the loss of water. And so we actually will create mucus as a way to just use some kind of lubricant or some kind of way to move things around in our body if we don't have enough water. And of course, if you have sinus headaches, the last thing you want is more mucus. So actually increasing your hydration can be a great way to decrease the amount of mucus in your body, which of course is going to give your sinuses a breather, right? Now also supporting the endocrine system if you have migraines. So there are definitely some tissue-specific nutrient supplements that can help the endocrine system function better. Besides adjusting the spine. And also some people, they'll have headaches because they have a lot of heavy metal toxicity. And so doing a detox is a great program. And some people, they struggle when they try to do detoxes because it actually makes the headaches worse as their body is dumping toxins. So I work with programs that actually are quite gentle, and because of the properties of the supplements that we use, it actually minimizes the common headaches that come from detoxing. So if you are concerned and you think you may have some toxicities, definitely reach out to me and let's have a chat and see if I can help with that. Again, if you need to jot down just send us a text at 802-985-9850. Now, so that's how you eat. Those are all the factors for eating. And then we want to look at movement, how you move, and the bad habits that can happen around movement. So posture is really important. How we sit, how we stand, how we sleep, how we work with technology screens, how we read, how we knit. And so our posture is a very important thing that we need to address. And then also burst exertion exercise, right? So once things have stabilized, burst exertion exercise can help to turn the stress switch off. So that goes in the category of movement. And then how we think. I love to use the strategy of emotional freedom technique, which is tapping on the endpoints of acupuncture meridians in order to turn the stress switch off. So I teach that here in the practice. But I also find that sleep is very important, that can affect how we think. So getting good sleep. And next month, if you struggle with sleep, next month you want to make sure you're on our webinar, because we will going over the best practices for sleep. I also find that there are some adaptogenic herbs that can be really good for people that have stress headaches. And again, that can help how you're thinking, how your perspective of the world, and how you sleep. And of course, having rest and downtime is very important. So some people have bad habits of just not giving themselves enough rest. So that's one of the things we need to address. So stopping the bad habits is one piece, but also adding specific exercises. So there are some specific core exercises that I'll introduce you to a few this evening. But for many people, I want to be very specific with the exercises I give them, because it depends on what's going on for them and what their posture needs and what their spine needs. So it's doing the exercises, not just knowing them, but actually doing them, right? Being action oriented, knowing how to prepare your spine for sleep, and doing some of these exercises I'm going to show you in a moment. And then also adding specific chiropractic adjustments. And we do a light touch tonal model here in the practice. We also use a brain-based way to reset the brain, and that helps the spine function better. And all of these things are for removing the subluxations and improving the connection between the body and the brain. And so remember that it is a compound effect. It's momentum and rhythm over time. It goes in both directions. So bad habits that accumulate over time are going to make things worse and worse. But good habits, doing the spinal exercises and correcting the subluxations with chiropractic adjustments over time, you get the greatest benefit as well. Now, the most common nutritional deficiencies that I find with headaches tend to be magnesium, and that's a really important one. So again, we've talked a lot about the effect the spine and nervous system have on headaches, but I want you to think about also the nutritional deficiencies that could be driving things as well. The research actually has stated that 75% or more of Americans are actually deficient in magnesium. And there are a number of other conditions in addition to headaches that are associated to magnesium deficiency, such as cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, asthma, PMS, migraine headaches, depression, anxiety. For some people, even legs cramping at night or restless legs, sometimes that can be a magnesium thing. And I also want to make sure I'm supporting another factor in this balance with magnesium, and that is phosphorus. So phosphorus also seems to play a particular role with headaches and migraines, and it's key for keeping the mineral balances with calcium and magnesium. So they all need to be in balance: phosphorus, magnesium, and calcium. I also like to support the adrenals if there are stress headaches with the adaptogenic herbs and minerals, and also helping to correct the low blood sugar and shifting away from the carb burner to a fat burner. And so Phosphfood Liquid is a great tool that I use for folks that struggle with headaches to get that balance right. All right, so remember, tech neck is what can lead to chronic neck pain, nerve problems, even herniated or bulging discs. And so we really do have to just break these bad habits of how we use technology. We just have to do it. So I want to show you this exercise. This is called the life extension exercise. And basically you're going to make a shape with your body with these different letters, YWLT. The Y, you can see the woman standing there. So she's up in the Y position. You want to hold that position, stretching your arms up for 20 seconds. And usually you're going to take a breath in and out and in and out. So a couple of breaths comes out to about 20 seconds. And then the second position is to bring your elbows right down as though you're putting them into your back pocket, right? So the W is putting the elbows into your back pocket, stretching them down as strongly as you can for those 20 seconds. Now the L is when you then just have your arms down to the side, but your hands are at a 90-degree angle out away from your body. And you want to open up the chest and bring the hands stretched backwards so that you can't really see your fingers if you're looking straight ahead at the horizon. If you wiggle your fingers, you want to stretch them back so you can't see them wiggling. And then the T is stretching the arms out from the shoulders straight out on either side of you, out at a parallel to the floor. And again, 20 seconds in that position. And again, stretch, pinching your scapula, your wings and the back behind you, pinching them together, which is going to then, again, open up the chest. And again, you want to wiggle the fingers so you can't see them. You want to do these life extension exercises 1 round for every 2 hours of sitting. So if you are stuck sitting in front of a monitor or at a desk, every 2 hours you want to go through your life extension exercises. So remember, like if you're like sitting down to do some movie binging, right? Between every movie, you're going to do your life extension exercises, right? Every 2 hours. All right. And so what we do is we combine this with the other corrective exercises. So you may want to take a screenshot of this so that you can remember it. And so this is a really important one for you to do. Again, life extension exercises, 20 seconds in each position, 1 round for every 2 hours of sitting. So how would you know if you have a subluxation? We actually use objective criteria to assess whether you have subluxations. So we use some instrumentation in the practice, which is a way for us to measure the nerve supply to the muscles, the nerve supply to the organs. We measure how well you're managing the stresses that you're under. And this instrumentation is actually instrumentation technology that the astronauts use to be monitoring their health. So it's state of the art, and it gives me such great information on the parts of the nervous system that you can't tell me about because you can't feel them. That's the motor nervous system, the autonomic, which we already talked about, right? So we actually have instrumentation that measures the function of the nervous system in those realms. Motion palpation and static palpation is the way that we actually touch the spine and feel, is there motion in the joint or not? Remember that when you're subluxated, your body will strap down that joint. So if we're feeling for motion, there may be a restriction in that motion, and that's one of the ways we identify where the subluxations are. And then simply feeling the misalignment of the vertebra with static palpation identifies where there may be subluxations as well. Now, visualization, that's talking about looking at the posture, actually visualizing the posture. Is the person looking at them from the side? Is their head over their shoulder, or are they carrying their head forward? Do they have that slouching posture that's developed? Or looking at them from the front, are they standing symmetrically? If they have equal weight on both feet looking straight ahead, is their head actually exactly bisected by a line that would be exactly bisecting the feet? Or is the posture skewed? Are they tilted to one side? Does the head have a tilt to it? Do the shoulders have a tilt to it? Do the hips have a tilt to it? So if you do have any tilts in your posture, or a leaning to one side in your posture, or if your head is forward, then these are all criteria that indicate that you very well may have subluxations. And then we'll also use x-rays at times to be able to actually look right in at the alignment of the vertebrae. And this also tells us whether or not there's any degenerative change that has gotten a start. And that is really important, because if it has gotten a start, then we want to address it right away. It's unbelievable the amount of degenerative change that is happening in the spine these days. I mean, the same way that dentists will teach people dental hygiene in order to have their teeth last their whole life, our spines really should last us our whole life with no degenerative change at all. But if we don't have proper spinal hygiene, then it means we're going to expect to see some degenerative change. And I think the numbers right now are about 50% of middle-aged people actually already have degenerative changes. It's 80 or 90% of older folks that have them, that are up in their 70s, 80s, and so on. But the thing that is most astounding is in 2004, they did a study, and they actually found that 9% of 10-year-olds already have early degenerative change. So this is a really important piece that we want to be monitoring. And if you know any children that are suffering from headaches, we definitely want to take a look at their spine, and we want to make that correction as soon as possible, because chances are the trajectory of where they're headed as they grow is not going to be good. So, perhaps you're curious about whether or not you have subluxations, and the way that we check that is through these different criteria. And that's what we do on our first visit. We first start with a consultation, and we find out the history that's been involved. Are these headaches recent, or have you suffered with them for a long time? What are the traumas you've had? What are the stresses? What are the bad habits? And how is this affecting your life? So we want to talk to you and listen to your story and understand exactly what's going on and what body signals you do have. And then all of this information is brought together to determine how your nervous system is dealing with stress and where there may be interference in the flow of your body's intelligence and healing. And ultimately, what is the root cause of your problem? Your body signals like the headaches, what do we need to do to correct the cause, not just treat the symptoms? And then once we do correct the cause, how do we help you get back to health? But if you never found out the root of the problem, how are you ever going to get back to health? So we get together, we discuss your case, we do a complete report of findings so that we can explain exactly what we did find and whether or not we can help, what our recommendations are, and then answer any questions that you have. And we do all of this right in-house, except for the x-rays. If we need x-rays, we can just send you out and you can get those done. But all the other scanning technology and everything we do right here in the practice. And so if many people are curious, what is the cost for something like that? In our practice, the initial exam is $210. But if you think about what you're getting for that, if you were in the medical arena trying to get that same information, it probably would cost you a few $1,000s for that kind of information. And in fact, you actually can't even get this kind of technology in the hospitals. So it's fantastic. And really, I mean, the cost of healthcare today, it's no wonder we have a $2 trillion healthcare burden, and it's actually more now, and it's going up. So again, what are the solutions to this? How do we help people? We have to correct the cause. So the analysis that we do actually helps us understand exactly what bad habits you need to change, what exercises you need to do, and how you need to be adjusted. And so remember that if you are subluxated, the only way to correct this is with the chiropractic adjustments. These exercises do not correct the subluxations. They help you to stop recreating them. And changing the bad habits helps you to stop recreating those subluxations, but you still have to correct the ones that are there. And remember, only chiropractors are trained to find and correct subluxations. It's an art, a science, and a philosophy of chiropractic, and it's highly specific. And in our practice, again, we use very gentle techniques to correct subluxations, to realign and return normal motion and function to the spine, to reduce the stress and the interference to the nervous system, and to normalize the nervous system input and the communication. And it is safe, it's effective, and actually chiropractic is the largest drug-free approach to health in the world. Millions of people get adjusted, and then they've been doing so for over 100 years. In fact, chiropractic just celebrated its 125th birthday, just on September 18th of this year. So how do you know if you have subluxations? You don't know unless you get checked. So if you are curious about your spine and nervous system, or about your family's spine and nervous system, about your kids, if you are, then you probably want to know what's going on inside of you. And so the next step is going to be easy. You just need to reach out to us and let us know that you'd like to have a consultation. And to do the full assessment, it takes a little over an hour because we actually do a very thorough exam and we do scans so that we can have the full digital profile of what's going on. And as I said, the cost is usually $210, but for folks that want to get checked, because you're watching this webinar, I want to give you a gift so that you can implement it right away. And we're going to cap the cost of your new patient experience to $47. To $47. That's fair, right? And the reason that we do this is that so often folks are concerned about what it costs and then they wait because they're afraid that it's going to be too expensive. And so we just want to remove the barriers and we want to reward the action takers. So tonight you can cap the cost of your new patient exam to just $47. And all you need to do is just text us and just send us a text and just text the word headache into the subject and text it to 802-985-9850. Remember, there is no such thing as a normal headache. And so if you're just looking for a short-term fix with medication, then you're only going to get so far and things could get worse. But if you're looking for long-term results, you have to consider the three-legged stool. And if you want to get checked, again, just reach out to us and let us know how we can help. We would love to help you. We've helped so many people. We'd love to help you. So there it is on the screen for you. Just send a text headache to 802-985-9850. And if you want to share this with, many people ask me, oh my gosh, my friend has headaches, but they weren't able to be on the call or on the webinar here. So just take a screenshot of this and you can send it over to them. And of course, we would honor it for friends and family. So remember that procrastination is the thief of health. Your problems will just, if your problems, this is a dangerous belief, your problems will just go away if you ignore them, but procrastination is the thief of health. So take that action step. You got on this webinar because you're an action taker, you wanted to learn more. So take it the next step and get yourself scheduled to see if we can help. We would love to help because procrastination is the thief of health. Thank you so much for your time and attention this evening for this webinar. And again, share this with your friends and family. I hope that I was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on our next workshop next month, which is all about sleep. Thank you so much.